your mind. I am deep in the annals of your... Hey everybody, welcome back to the Honey and Absinthe After Hours podcast. We're your host. I'm Vincent, a background designer for the Hollywood animation yet again, and industry.
And I'm Janet, the ex-Disney artist turned independent creator, and this is a podcast about all things art, business, and whatever we feel like.
Now today we're going to talk about why Hollywood is lying about the quality of their movies.
But before we get into it, please press my buttons.
People, please squeeze those buttons. Hello, how are you? I hope you had a great 4th of July. It's been a really sweaty one for the both of us. We hope you had a really good one and you didn't start a fire with your fireworks. So Janet, the big weekend movie for the 4th of July time is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which is the 5th Indiana Jones movie that stars Harrison Ford once again, reprises his role as Indiana Jones, and we have Phoebe Waller-Bridge as well as a few other actors and yada 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 yada. Let's talk about this movie because it is a monumental movie, but not monumental in a positive way, I think.
Okay. What were your expectations going into watching this movie?
My expectations were surely this must be better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which everybody kind of poo-poos because of two things. And those two things are aliens and Shia LaBeouf. And Shia LaBeouf, the great over-actor that is Shia LaBeouf, and the alien-obsessed human that is Steven Spielberg, they collide in this grandiose way where they shouldn't appear, which is Indiana Jones. So I'm not sure if you've seen that movie. Indiana Jones has a kid. It's Shia LaBeouf, and there are aliens at the end.
Are you? I never asked you. Do you consider yourself an Indiana Jones fan?
I'm not an Indiana Jones fan. I am a Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom fan. Which is the second Indiana Jones movie. I had that on VHS, and I would watch that movie over and over again. I love Short Round. I love the blonde lady. I forget her name. It's been a long time since I've done this, but when I was a kid, I would do the thing where I'd watch a scene and reenact it with my toys, especially the minecart scene. And I would hide every time Indiana Jones would witness the villain do the Kalima thing where he rips the heart out of the random dude, and he gets burned to a crisp in that pit of lava. It freaked me out as a kid, but then I would always really enjoy that movie. It's my favorite out of all of them because I feel like for my young mind, the pacing was really good. 1 and 3, a little slow for a little kid, but Indiana Jones 2, kind of a joyride for a little one like me. Everyone has their favorite. Everyone's like, oh, Raiders is the best. Oh, the third one's the best. But like for me, I have a soft spot for that one. So I love the character of Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford, Han Solo, James Bond, all these kind of what the people in the colleges would call toxic male characters. Super fun for little Vincent to watch. I also love the booby traps. Booby traps are fun. I didn't get that giddy sense of like, oh, booby traps, and like, oh yeah, I'd be one of those people where like, you pretend like the floor is lava, and you pretend you're Indiana Jones, and you're jumping from table to table, and your parents are like, you're gonna ruin the table, stop doing that, your ugly, dirty ass feet on the table.
Did that come from Indiana Jones?
Yeah. That came from, well, at least for me.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how it is for other people, but then, you watch Indiana Jones, he's this burly, everyday man who's really nerdy into archaeology and history, but then he's like, for some strange reason, he's good at shooting a gun and whipping things, and he is really good at avoiding booby traps, which is ridiculous. But, like, it's just adventure. It's fun adventure. Nothing really floated my boat in that way until I played Uncharted 2, which like totally harkens to like that, oh, booby traps and jumping from jeep to jeep and this like grand set piece, oh, the train, oh my goodness. It's that. I think that's the grand appeal of Indiana Jones. There's this like grand adventure that goes from like point A in the globe to point B. There's always that beat where you see like little tick marks in the map that goes from whatever to whatever. And this movie did have that. It was like almost checked box everything about Indiana Jones. He hates spiders. Not spiders. Indiana Jones hates snakes, you know? And like there's just tropes. Like every Bond person.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like our American Bond movies.
Yeah,
it's like the American version.
Shaken not stirred, and you know, banging the girl. But like with Indiana Jones, it's like, oh, the door's about to close, so I gotta grab my hat. Oh, I hate snakes. It's a thing, and you know, the more you get deep into a franchise thing like this, the more you go like, how are they gonna play that or subverse that, make that more subversive or whatever. So I understand. It's not like I don't know if like millennials are probably the last generation who give a shit about this guy.
Millennials like you, because then there's millennials like me
who don't give a shit about this guy. But like this is a hand-me-down from our parents' generation. Yeah. This is a Gen Xer franchise, man. This is for those people. Like like so. Yeah, I understand. I like Indiana Jones too. I understand the tropes. So it's not like I'm not expecting him to grab his hat and do the whole "I'm afraid of snakes" thing. I would be disappointed if they didn't do that stuff. So so long story short, I expect them to do the Indiana Jones thing.
Yes,
you know?
But it's not like you're expecting like Temple of Doom.
You mean greatness?
Yes.
No. I wasn't expecting greatness. Because even Spielberg can't make a good Indiana Jones movie anymore.
So for me...
You know, Spielberg hasn't made a good movie in a long time, arguably. He has, like, for me personally, I can't even... It would be rude to say, because like, it's like 20 years old, I'll mention a movie and you're like, come on. Bridge of Spies, Munich... Ready Player One, and I'm like, The Fablemans,
West Side Story.
Hey, yeah, it might be like kind of one of the best ones since actually, yeah.
In modern days,
Spielberg era. Not aging well, that guy's film history.
For me, I was coming into this new Indiana Jones movie as a normie. Technically, I'm a normie when it comes to most movies, most franchises, because it wasn't until college that I crawled out from under my rock that my parents put me under. I was like a blank slate. So college was when I watched Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and Indiana Jones. The only reason why I watched the older Indiana Jones movies is because my storyboard teacher in school is a huge Indiana Jones fan.
He would dress up as Indiana Jones for Halloween. Yeah. Almost every Halloween. Not almost every
he's
Halloween.
Like a classic Gen Xer.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure I watched all of them. I remember catching Crystal Skull on TV when I was really young because I remember Shia LaBeouf in it, but I don't think I watched all of it, and I don't think I liked it very much.
Let me tell you what, because this is kind of forgotten because we're all poo-pooing Crystal Skull like it's, you know, it was the worst thing ever. Let me just put you back in time to when I watched Crystal Skull for the first time. Like I said, big fan of the second Indiana Jones movie. I think Crystal Skull came out when I was 17 years old. Yeah, you're that old. So was Harrison Ford. We know Phoebe Waller-Bridge. When I was 17 years old, that movie was coming out, and I was excited. Like, so goddamn excited. The only thing that kind of turned me off about it is just like, you know, at that time, especially Harrison Ford wasn't the spryest dude, but it's still enticing to watch, you know, a globe-trotting adventure, which, you know, the only thing we kind of got was Lara Croft with Angelina Jolie, those movies. But I remember going to see that at the Vista in Sunset in LA, and I remember the line was pretty long, went throughout the back to that one random parking lot. If you know, the Vista is right next to kind of the worst intersection ever in LA, but I digress. I was so excited. I remember how excited everybody in the line was, and I remember going in and watching the movie, and just slowly feeling more and more upset at the movie as it went on. Firstly, because of Shia LaBeouf and his overacting. And then at the end, where it's just like, what the fuck, aliens? Which is like, I remember, the thing where like the Kate Blanchett and her eyes, and she goes, "Blah," and then like the temple crumbles, but it's not actually a temple, it's a spaceship. I remember sitting there going like, dude, what the fuck? What the fuck? Why? Aliens, not... This isn't the History Channel alien, And then like, we were all like, it was... I can't remember a movie in my teens that we shit on harder than that movie. To the point where like, when South Park did its gag about Indiana Jones... I'm not sure if you remember. It's like George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. They're like sexually assaulting Indiana Jones, and then they're doing the deliverance scene, basically going squeal, oh my God. And then Indiana Jones goes like, it was the funniest, most cathartic thing, because to me that was like this, like you couldn't have like shown what I thought they were doing to Indiana Jones than that scene from South Park. And the funny trivia about that is apparently Steven Spielberg wrote to Matt and Trey, and was just there. It was essentially like, ha ha ha, very funny guys. But it's very like kind of flexing that you're getting a letter from Steven Spielberg, and Matt and Trey still continues to like shit on Steven Spielberg to like, I think there's another episode that followed that kind of shat on Spielberg and George Lucas. So that was a place in time that I just wanted to share all of that with you, just to put you back in that time when Crystal Skull came out. We hated that shit. That was like some of the most offensive shit ever. And I remember thinking that was the first time, because I remember like before I went to that movie theater, Jurassic Park, Jaws, Indiana Jones, Saving Private Ryan, Schindler's List. At that time, I think Munich came out. Like, Steven Spielberg was just like, he can't make a bad movie. The guy, like, you think it's impossible for him to make a bad movie. And then as a kid, kind of having your heart broken, seeing George Lucas and Indiana Jones literally sexually assault Indiana Jones was a little like, whoa, I can't believe it's possible for you to make bad movies. And it's one of those things where you grow up thinking a certain way. Those formative years of childhood where like your heroes aren't always going to be your heroes, and your heroes are fallible sometimes. So Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was huge. It proved to me that, like, as much as you like somebody, they will fail you, and like, that's the contract, like, we fail you all the time. But we're not Steven Spielberg, clearly. So, like, one day, Christopher Nolan might fail you. In a way, Tarantino has failed me a few times, but whatever. That's just part of it. But, like, growing up, I was like, Steven Spielberg, he doesn't make bad movies. It's impossible.
I'm kind of glad that I didn't grow up with that, because...
It broke my heart, man.
Yeah, I don't have...
It broke my heart.
You have a lot more moments, especially, like, with modern movies, breaking your heart. Because I don't have a childhood, that doesn't happen to me. So because I don't have the nostalgic rosy lens towards Indy, like, I've watched those movies, and I know that Indy is scared of snakes, and I know Short Round, and I know, like, certain tropes but, like, I'm not, like, super into it. So the only expectations I had for this movie were that it's going to be a mediocre franchise movie like we've been getting for the past few years.
The other expectation, too, that you and I can talk about is we like James Mangold's work.
Yeah.
He's another one where just like James Mangold, like, as much shit as the nerds want to give him because he gets and spats into nerds with the Twitters and stuff. Yeah. Truthfully, I'm not sure if any of the nerds are willing to admit, but the man directs, he's a really good director. I love Walk the Line. I love Ford versus Ferrari. I love 310 to Yuma. I love Logan, obviously. Kind of one of those movies I remember coming out of that movie going like, damn, dude, that was a good ass movie.
My problem with Mangold is that I acknowledge he's a good director. I also know he's like a huge people pleaser, and he's one of those directors who is on Twitter, and that's a red flag for me. Because especially you take any of these franchise movies that these studios have recruited people like Mangold to direct. It doesn't matter how good his movies were previously, it's still a franchise movie. And most of the time, these studios neuter their direction. Oftentimes, you can't tell that this was a movie by Mangold or Taika or, whatever director they've pulled from the indie circuit or, And for me, that's why I always go into these franchise movies, especially recently, with very low expectations. Like, it's probably gonna be okay. Like, it's not... I wasn't expecting bad, because these franchise movies are made in a laboratory. They're focus group tested. They're never gonna take any risks, which means rarely do you get something like The Joker. Most of the time, it's just gonna be a B-C movie, and I'm not going to remember it in about an hour, to be honest. So I wasn't rooting for it to fail, but I also wasn't expecting anything great.
Surely, I think, you and I probably expected Guardians, Across the Spider-Verse, The Flash, just okay. Just okay, not like mind-blowing.
But not like awful
not
either.
Awful.
So, what did you like and dislike about the movie?
Let's start with likes, because it's going to be a very short conversation.
Okay.
And this has to do why I get... This relates to why I get really angry at the certain quips in this movie, is that, like, even though Harrison Ford is as old as he is Indiana Jones, no matter what. And it's one of those things where, like, everyone, as much as we want to recast this character, he's not exactly like James Bond, or we haven't seen that yet, because everyone's like, oh, Chris Pratt could do it. And I'm like looking at Chris Pratt in Jurassic Park, and I go like, no, like, there's this thing that Harrison Ford does. It's not really how he delivers his lines. It's his physicality. It's the way he kind of lumbers into every punch and leans into it. It's the way he jolts into a gunshot. It's the way... And, like, the thing to me that is Indiana Jones' shit is his facial expressions. There's just something about when Harrison Ford is that guy, he puts his entire face into it. All those scowls, all those, like, suave smirks that he does, all of those concern, like, everything about Indiana Jones watching this movie was like, holy shit. Like, even, like, under all of that CG is the man who is Indiana Jones. And to me, that's kind of the most glorious part of it. I wonder if this is how, like, the old timers see Sean Connery when he did, I forgot which one, I forgot which James Bond movie was his last, and even though he's not the same spry dude anymore, it's kind of crazy to see, like, that is that version of James Bond. There's never been another James Bond, and, like, with Indiana Jones, if they were ever foolhardy and foolish to do this again, I think my greatest wish is to kind of just make the Indiana Jones guy different, because you can't just LARP Harrison Ford. What Harrison Ford brings to Indiana Jones is completely special to him. So the most shining achievement of the shining part of this movie is getting Harrison Ford to be that guy again, which is fun. For the most part, when you actually see him do the thing, it's really, really fun to watch. And that is it. Oh, Mads Mikkelsen is fun. He's fine. Phoning it in like fucking crazy. But, like, him and Harrison Ford have this aura of, like, working with what they got and doing the best that they can.
Okay, I'm going to be honest here for all the Star Wars fans who, like, love Harrison Ford. I don't like Harrison Ford.
Janet hates Harrison Ford.
I don't know what it is. I've tried to explain it to you multiple times, but there's something about that era, this like late 80s, 90s era character that is very like Han Solo is an example of it, and Indiana Jones too, that I don't really like.
Which
like,
James Bond? We're talking Roger Moore?
Yeah. I don't like that kind of character for some reason. It's just not my cup of tea as some kid that grew up in like the late 90s, early 2000s. I like the like Keanu Reeves and what's that one movie with Sandra Bullock?
Speed.
Yeah, like that's the typical male lead that I grew up with. So I'm like, Harrison Ford's not my cup of tea.
Yeah, we were having this conversation in front of Nick's Feed Your Face, which is a great place to get sandwiches in Prescott, Arizona. I was like really digging into this conversation, and it really is a conversation about your flavor of masculinity.
Yes.
And it's not like, you know, like toxic. You just find some versions of masculinity more relatable and possible. And then you find, like, you know, the Roger Moores and the Indiana Jones and the Han Solo is a little like a fantasy.
Yeah, it feels a little bit hard for me to believe and relate to. Whereas, like, if you go back far enough, then I start suspending more disbelief. But there's this weird period of time, the male characters that I really, really dislike. But that being said, I really liked Harrison Ford in this movie. He's the only thing I liked in this movie, which says a lot about this movie because I don't really like Harrison Ford.
What was it that you could latch on to that you'd say was enjoyable to watch this guy that you don't typically like?
He has what we would now call an old Hollywood X factor that a lot of new Hollywood actors don't have.
Right.
He has a gravitas to the way he holds himself now. Even back then, I guess, he really emotes with his face in the way a lot of actors don't do these days, probably because of Botox. And he's just fun, really, really fun to watch. I think just maybe it even has to do with this movie so bad that he shines. It could just be that, but especially when there's two Harrison Fords in this movie, and when you see the real Harrison Ford, it's kind of amazing. It's like, wow, this movie really comes alive when you're on screen, and it makes sense why they pay you the big bucks. That and like one of my first, again, I crawled out from under my rock in college, and one of my first formative experiences with Harrison Ford is, again, my storyboard teacher who loves him and like Star Wars and everything that he like grew up with him, met him one time and was like, he's kind of a dick. And he was like, never meet your heroes. He told us all, never meet your heroes because it's upsetting. And then I was like, man. And then now you can't, and then every instance after that, I couldn't unsee it. Like, even in all the promotional stories about this movie, like Phoebe Waller-Bridge pranking him in his trailer, and like other stuff that's come out recently, they're trying to spin the fact that he's a dick.
There's this one recently where they're shooting the new Captain America with Anthony Mackie, and Harrison Ford is straight up going like, let's shoot this piece of shit. And then Anthony Mackie goes like, yeah, let's shoot this shit. But I'm like thinking like, no, Anthony Mackie, he's not like, you know, let's shoot this shit, it's fun. Like it's this, let's, you know, this shit.
Thing, yeah.
It's not like let's do this thing. It's literally, let's shoot this piece of shit that comes out of a horse's ass, like, which is Captain America, you know, from Marvel and Disney. Like, this. He's essentially saying, "This is my fucking paycheck. Let's go through with this, so I can go to bed."
Yes, that's the kind of guy he is. Right. So unfortunately, during one of my formative experiences with him, it's not great. But that being said, he did great. I liked it. That's the only thing I like about this movie.
You like Mads?
I like him. What's really funny is when you can watch these actors phone it in, and then suddenly they're not, because they're trying to make the best of the piece of shit they were handed, and they're like, this is kind of interesting, I get to act against Harrison Ford, and then suddenly it's gone, just like that, like the light behind their eyes just disappears.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the bad in this piece of shit that's called Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
There is so much bad about this movie that I was utterly shocked by the end of it. First of all, the CGI is probably the most blatant thing that's really, really awful about this movie.
I can't believe they made us sit through 15 minutes of CGI Harrison Ford. I mean, River Phoenix from the third movie. Like, I don't understand why they couldn't have recasted Indiana Jones just for that sequence. Give somebody a chance. Give some young, really handsome new piece of talent a chance. But it's really annoying that just because we can put Harrison Ford's young face on lumbering, not so spry Harrison Ford means that we should. I remember thinking, like, this is really unsettling. Like, it's almost like Harrison Ford has the worst case of Botox, that he's not emoting with his full face, which he does when he's Indy. And not only that, to add insult to injury, it's a nighttime sequence that is super underlit and a mess to watch.
We've had this trend of really underlit fight scenes about 10 years ago. Something like those fight scenes like in Daredevil, for example, where no one can see anything, or Game of Thrones, no one can see anything. We kind of gone past that. Like, I haven't had a complaint since that Game of Thrones thing. But this was the first time I was like, whoa, why did you light it to the point where I can't see what's happening? I don't know. I just know that people are like fighting on top of a train, and I don't really know I don't see a clear punch. I don't see anything. It's
hard to read the action.
Yeah.
Everything just feels like a mush of struggle.
Mm-hmm. And then, oh my god, those CGI sky with the clouds, with the CGI train, and then the water, and then everything is CGI, including Harrison Ford's face. And I thought, like, technically, if you're taking, like, a mental picture of like a still, it looks fine compared to a lot of deep fakes you've seen before. But the problem is, in motion, it looks stiff. Harrison Ford is known for his really like expressive emotions, and he's just not doing it. And I was wondering, like, why is this scene falling flat, other than the fact that I can't see anything? And then when we finally get to Harrison Ford, like modern day Harrison Ford, who's old, and
he's shut that Beatles music down, I'm trying to sleep, Harrison Ford.
And he's right there in camera. He's emoting so much with his old ass face, and I go like, man, that's real. What I just sat through for like 30 minutes was none of that was real. All of that was in front of a green screen. And it was upsetting because none of it really mattered, because it was all just exposition. And also throw in some Deus Ex Machina in there as well. And I was just so annoyed.
A pole hits Mad Mikkelsen.
Yeah. And that's how the Nazis were defeated the first time. Indy didn't actually defeat him. So there's that. But it's not just like the beginning. It's like all throughout the movie. There's a really bad opening, and then there's the really bad CGI ending, and then there's like a bunch of car chase set pieces in the middle that are all really bad CGI. All of it didn't feel concrete or real, and it was so long. The movie is way too long for what it is. I don't know why each action set piece needed to last like 15 minutes, it feels like, each, and there's so many that like it all kind of like goes over my head. The next egregious CGI can't watch, it's too dark stuff is the eels. You have
wait. Let's zoom in a little here, just because it feels so broad when you complain about the movie. So after when Harrison Ford complains, and then we finally meet Phoebe Waller-Bridge, which I think we'll save her performance for the end. They get thrusted into adventure with apprehending her because she steals the Dial of Destiny, which, her dad and Indy found in the prologue teaser of the beginning of the movie. So we get introduced to Mads Mikkelsen's goons, who basically go on a killing spree. Just so you know, these are bad people. They go literally on a killing spree in this school campus, basically, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's before that, there's this really tense thing with a black bellboy, an African American bellboy, which is very uncomfortable because there's a lot of tension there. Okay, what?
Let's explain how ridiculous this scene is. There are multiple race baiting scenes in this movie that make me very uncomfortable, and not for any of the right reasons, and feels very out of place in an Indiana Jones movie that's supposed to be about globe-trotting treasure hunting. This bellhop is serving Mads Mikkelsen, who is a Nazi, and he outs himself as a Nazi, basically asking this black bellhop, what do you think about World War II? And then the bellhop was like, well, I fought in World War II. And then he's like, well, you guys didn't win, meaning like America didn't actually win. So he's like outing himself as a Nazi. So then this bellhop is like, interesting. And then Mads Mikkelsen asked him, like, how does it feel now to you fought for your country and now you're like this, you're a bellhop, and like so much respect they gave you, huh? And then I'm just like, I don't know if that means anything coming from a Nazi. Like this was, and then like, because I was like, if a Nazi said that to me, I would be like, I'm not exactly offended, and I'm not going to take anything you say to me seriously, and you're trying to use America against me as if I would be sympathetic to you, of all
people.
You're
a Nazi!
Yeah. And so the bellhop just, like, silently walks away with his tray of food, and I was just like, that was very uncomfortable and strangely out of place. And then there was another instance of a black CIA agent woman who is working with Mads Mikkelsen's goons.
Very confusing after that scene, because it's just like, well, why would Nazis work with a black lady CIA agent if they hated black people because they're Nazis, but then they kind of go along chagriningly with this CIA agent who, after they witness the Nazi goons kill people because they're pretending to be agents, kill random teachers in the faculty hall or whatever, she goes, stop killing people. She literally just goes, hey, stop killing people. Like, she looks so goddamn offended, but then, like, the plot moves on.
Nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
They kill her eventually, as if none of us saw that coming. And she's like so shocked. And it's just like, you watch them murder like 5 to 10 people. You don't think that you could be next, maybe, and your Nazi dar didn't go on that, like, maybe these people I'm working with aren't actually great people, but yet, like, I'm a Fed, so I gotta do the duty for America. Yeah, like, so my conspiratorial brain was like, so the writers were like, right now, culturally, in real life, in reality, we're like kind of for the government. So technically, we have a bunch of Nazis working with the government, and that looks really bad. So we need like a black CIA agent who is also happens to be a woman, to kind of be to represent the good side of government.
And Chris Carter had more balls in X-Files, man, where he did that one episode where Mulder's stuck in that back in time Nazi SS ship, and then everybody is old timey, and he literally made the connotation that the Nazis are the same as the CIA.
Yeah.
Like, it's so verbatim in that episode. But no, like this, they pussyfooted.
Yes.
Like they had one foot over on like the government is bad, but then the other foot on like, well, you know, they're not all bad. I'm just like, okay.
Like,
all right.
That's so strange to have this weird. There's a lot of like hidden culture war bullshit in this movie that is so out of place, and so it makes the movie confused, and
it ages the movie.
Yeah,
I think. Like that stuff, like we're so over that shit, and now when I see that this movie, like 4 years in the making, it seems 5 years in the making, it just seems so out of place and old. And then we would have been rolling our eyes over it maybe if this came out 3 years ago, but now we're just like, oh, I can't stand this. I can't fucking stand this shit.
I find it really disgusting that this movie has a hard time criticizing the government. Like, it makes you look really bad to like kind of sort of support the government.
Elemental had more criticisms of the government than this
and
goddamn
bureaucracy
movie.
and just God, it's so gross.
Okay, so we move on. There's this thing where Indiana Jones is, chasing after Phoebe Waller-Bridge on the horse, and this Nazi dude's chasing after him with a motorcycle, and then Phoebe Waller-Bridge goes away, but then Indy catches word that she's auctioning the one of the two halves of the Dial of Destiny. So then he meets with that dude from the first movie from Raiders, and they have this like, remember from the first Raiders movie, I'm the guy, remember me? And then they tease that he almost goes out with him to have this one last adventure with Indiana Jones, but Indiana Jones is like, that's too much member berry, so you stay at home. I'm gonna do this all by myself because what people don't want is a member berry with you. They want a female-driven, strong woman thing with Phoebe Waller-Bridge. So he goes to I forgot, was it Morocco?
Yeah, Morocco.
Yes, he goes to Morocco with by himself, and then he meets this not short round. I think his name is Fleabag.
Oh my god, I don't even remember.
Right, I don't know. I only know because I think they call him that on the Twitter, and I assume that's it. Let's just for the sake of our conversation call him not shorthand because that's essentially what he is.
Yes.
And then okay. So before all of this, because Phoebe Waller-Bridge is trying to deceive Indiana Jones, the first scenes you see with her in the diner are not that offensive, right? Well, I don't know how you feel. Well, for me, that wasn't that offensive.
It was pretty offensive.
Okay, wait a second. But to me, I was like, okay, because this is my first movie, my first piece of media I've ever seen this lady, and I've never seen her in anything before. So she briefs Indy, and then she essentially... You find out that when she takes the Dial of Destiny from Indy's storage area, that she's been duping Indy this whole time. And that was to me, that was my first whoa, why? That's not nice. You know what I mean? That's not a nice thing to do to Indiana Jones, who's like an old man. You basically
who cares about you?
Yeah, who cares about you and has basically family history about you. You fucking tricked him. That's not a nice thing to do. So then when we get to Morocco and then she's mask off, then I go it becomes blatantly clear that by the second she is on screen, I am really vehemently disliking this character.
Yeah, I'm the same. I went from zero expectations. I'm not rooting for you to fail.
I'm giving you a chance.
Yeah, I don't have any preconceived notions about it. I'm a lot of fanboyism Indy back when I think a year ago it was being promoted and everything. People were really upset with her being potentially cast as the new Indiana Jones. But
right, and calling her a Mary Sue, whatever. But then for me, I'm not we were talking about this. I'm not when all that hate towards the females of Star Wars came out, I wasn't like that. I was like, Daisy Ridley is a fine whatever. I think she was given a bad hand. She was written bullshit, but she was great and she was charming. And if only they gave her better things to do, maybe that franchise would have ended up in a different place. Same with Rose, the little Asian girl that like. It's not that I hated her. It's just that they didn't do much with Rose, and that shit with her kissing John Boyega was so random, and like it was.
Blame the writers, blame the director. Don't send hate to the actress. She's just doing her job. And I also thought it was really upsetting the way they made her look, because I was like, she's beautiful. Why'd you make her look like a turnip? Yeah, why'd you do that to her?
A turnip wearing a jumpsuit.
That's awful. I'd be so mad if they did that to me. Like what is this haircut you're giving me? Why do you make me look like this? Oh my god, are you trying to set me up to fail?
But like watching Phoebe Waller-Bridge in this role,
it's like her fault.
Was her fault.
Yeah.
The movie's fault. Everybody's fault, and it just was amazing that like I didn't want to be that person hating on a character like this, but like my god, she is so goddamn unlikable. It's amazing.
So
you were talking about the beginning of you had red flags. What? I'm curious. We didn't talk about this.
At the beginning, my first red flag is that she was a know-it-all.
She was being a Mulder about it.
Yes. She wasn't being like, oh, I know these things. It was almost like she was rubbing her know-it-allness. Like, there's a difference between just simply being smart and being a know-it-all. It's like Hermione Granger going, it's Leviosa, not Leviosa. It like, that's being a know-it-all and being someone who's just kind of nerdy and
like Mulder.
Yes, who knows things.
I just happen to know that chupacabras are blah 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 blah.
Yeah, like that's annoying in a story point, but like Mulder himself isn't annoying. Or like recently we were watching Independence Day, and Jeff Goldblum's character is a very nerdy guy, but he's not annoying about it. He doesn't like rub it in your face that he's smarter than you. But like from the beginning, Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character is like, well, I know this. I can't believe you don't know that. I know this. And
the scene where she's sitting in on the class, which should have been like
immediate red flag for me.
I was still trying to give her a chance. I was still like,
me too. Okay, so like when she was
she knows she's passionate about this.
When she was trying to like be friends with Indy and be like, I'm your goddaughter and I'm showing up and I'm finally like I want to connect.
And he's like, oh, wombat. Oh.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, this is kind of sweet. This is kind of nice. And then like she turns on a dime, and she's really like cheeky about it. And I was like, okay, so this is how it's gonna go. But then, really what sealed the nail in the coffin was the Morocco scene.
Oh, yeah.
Where, again, with, like, the weird culture war bullshit, she is really greedy. She has this line when she's like, well, this is how I justify stealing ancient artifacts from my godfather who doesn't give a shit about me. Money talks and relationships don't mean anything to me, and it was something about like capitalism. And then I was like, oh, okay, here we go.
Yeah, and like if you're an Indiana Jones fan, you know that Indy doesn't risk his life for these artifacts for anything but anything. No money, no fame, no power, not even to live forever like in Indiana Jones 3. It's literally these things belong in a museum and he respects the history, which is kind of just like, I know it's really, kind of, I don't know how else to say it, boomery, or I like just like kind of, that's a really gentlemanly, impossible kind of high morals and principles thing that he has, but it's what he's about. So when you see this character who literally has a philosophy that aligns with most Indiana Jones villains, it's kind of insane. It makes me like, there's a moment there where I hate Phoebe Waller-Bridge more than, well, a lot of the movie where I hate Phoebe Waller-Bridge worse than the goddamn Nazis. It's amazing. It's amazing.
I'm rooting for the Nazis half the time because
like,
I hate Phoebe Waller-Bridge that much. Because she's so unlikable. She's so greedy. Her jokes are so bad. She's like the worst strong woman you can possibly be because she's a know-it-all. There's no like. Literally, she wins every single argument against Harrison Ford when all he's doing is being loving towards her, calling her wombat and being like, I love you, and like, don't you care about your father? And she's like, no, fuck him. Like, I just go like, you're like the biggest annoying villain ever, and you have constant little quips about Harrison Ford, the star of the movie, being old.
Like, we get it. We're here to watch kind of like this character's last fucking hurrah, and it's kind of unpleasant to be constantly reminded. It's almost like I want to just be in the movie and go like, hey, stop that. He's Indiana Jones. They're like, I know he's old, but he's fucking Indiana Jones. Don't do that to him.
To even, like, she's so over, like, OP as a character that, like, she knows these, like, ancient languages or whatever, and she translates them, and like this is like, not only does she know that one, she is better. She's somehow better than Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones, because she can predict things that he can't. She's always right.
Well, she memorized whatever
from
impossible library of archived stuff, and it happens to be in her brain. Like, okay,
like nothing comes hard for her. She wins every single time, and in fact she makes Indiana Jones' life a living hell. And I go like, I kind of hate this character, and by proxy, I kind of hate Short Round, not Short Round, because at least Short Round was really likable. He was really sweet and cute.
I love you,
like,
Indy.
Yeah. He tried his best to help Indy. Not Short Round. Short Round is just...
He bitches and moans.
That's his only job.
He bitches and moans with Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who bitches and moans throughout the whole fucking adventure. God, it's just insane. It's so... I just kept... like, you saw me throw up my hands up in the air and go like, I can't believe this movie. I was fuming. And like, how just disrespectful these characters are, how douchey they are, how their motivations are very villainous and unlikable. And then, like, there's the story stuff where the member berry bullshit of, like, Indiana Jones is afraid of snakes, but we can't do the beat of Indiana Jones going to the pit with the mirror, with the lens, and then he shows the thing, but then there's lots of snakes, and then he goes up with the thing, and then there's Nazis up in the thing. We can't do that again. So what we're gonna do is basically make Indiana Jones go down into the thing, in the underwater thing, and then get the thing that's really important, but then instead of snakes, it's eels. And then I just imagine the fucking pitch for this stupid fucking piece of shit scene where like and then like, guess what, Indiana Jones struggles because snakes, but not snakes, eels. I'm struggling. And Phoebe Waller-Bridge, because she's an asshole, looks at Indiana Jones and wonders, should I help Indiana Jones?
She doesn't. I don't even know how the scene's boarded out and directed so badly, and the CGI so bad. I have no idea how Harrison Ford gets out of the eel pit, because he's just it's nonsense darkness for like most of it, and then Phoebe Waller-Bridge just gets hoisted up out of nowhere, and they just, all of them just suddenly get magically hoisted up by the Nazis, and everything is honky-dory.
And the Nazis, it's this almost the same exact beat as Raiders when Marion and Indy get captured by the thing and they're stuck in the tents, but instead of the tents, we're inside the ship. And then they're stuck inside the ship with the bad guys, and they're all surrounded. They're kind of helpless. And then there's this thing. There's this fucking thing with Phoebe Waller-Bridge being an absolute annoying, what do the British call it? Twat. Like, she's being just an annoying twat. Okay, so what is she doing?
She's deciding to collaborate with the Nazis for money, because fuck Indy, am I right? And she does this little like dance around the ship as she's like reading this thing, and like she's what what actors like to call acting cute as a pejorative. Like, she's not being... She's being, you know, when you
What is she trying to do versus how is it coming across?
Okay, so you know when, like, you go to a dinner party and, like, you're trying to be the center of attention and you're, like, taking up the whole room by, like, doing this thing that's very performative. She's being performative. That's what it is. But, like, there's a good way of doing it, of being, like, really charismatic and really fun about it, but instead it comes across kind of obnoxious and, again, a little bit like a know-it-all. The whole time what she's kind of sort of doing is distracting the Nazis from what she's actually trying to work with Indy to light a stick of dynamite to disrupt them and for them to escape.
But the hilarious part about this scene is that, like, because of everything that's happened before the scene, you don't... What is the word for it? You don't believe it's out of Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character for her to work with the Nazis. Yeah. Because she's that much of an unlikable character that, like, and for a moment, like, I guess it's the whole point of the scene that, like, oh, is she actually going to work for the Nazis? I believed every second she was acting like she was working for the Nazis. And it's almost really just... For a moment there, I really hated her because, like, I can't believe you're negotiating with the Nazis. And, like, yeah, okay, it's like she has the dynamite and she's actually pretending and all that stuff, but then it's just like, that was really fucking annoying to me, you know? That she had the fucking gall to do that.
In fact, after they blew up the Nazis, it actually didn't feel like she was working with Indy to get away. It was almost like, he, I played a prank on the Nazis and now let's go. And, like, I don't actually like you, Indy, still. Like, you know?
I was saving my own skin. Yes. You just happened to be there.
And you happened to help me.
And I was actually using you to light the piece of dynamite.
Exactly.
Because it's so completely self-serving. Yeah. And it doesn't feel like Phoebe Waller-Bridge she cares about getting them out of the situation. It feels completely like fuck everybody. I'm out for myself. Fuck everybody else.
And she never acts like there are stakes here. Like, if she gets caught by the Nazis, bad things will happen. She acts like everything's a joke constantly. There's nothing about this movie that from her that, like, to me, like, Harrison Ford is like, oh no, we were caught by the Nazis. This is really bad. There was not an ounce of that ever with her. Everything was like some lighthearted adventure for her. You know what I mean? And so, like, this character, she doesn't have a character arc. Because, like, at the end, we think this kind of greedy character, the natural character arc is, oh no, I'm going to have to choose between money or my godfather.
Right.
I need to choose between human life and money. And, like, that's the most typical paint by numbers Hollywood blockbuster arc that would happen for this character. And guess what? It doesn't really happen. She never has that, really, that moment of conflict. She all of a sudden, for some reason, needs to, like, prevent Indy from basically unaliving himself. Do you want to explain?
That's a big loaded thing. So, okay. Remember when I told you how frustrated...
I'm sorry.
Remember when I told you how frustrated I was with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and the space saucer inside of the temple? Like, what happens in this movie is so unbelievable. I couldn't suspend disbelief. It was just so unbelievable to me that they would bother to do this. So I don't know why I had this preconceived notion, but, like, it's set up that like Indiana Jones lost Shia LaBeouf at Vietnam because he enlisted just to spite Indiana Jones, and he dies, and it ruins his relationship with Marion, and they're about to get divorced. Their relationship's falling apart, and for some strange reason, I thought the whole point of this Dial of Destiny thing was to undo something like that. I don't know why I assumed that, but that was this strange preconceived notion that I had. So, you know, if you don't watch this movie, but like, if you do, you saw what happened. The bad guys, Mads Mikkelsen basically gets both halves of the Dial of Destiny. They go inside this aircraft. They find this butthole in the space-time continuum and use the Dial of Destiny to go inside the butthole. And through the butthole, they go into a different time period. Mads Mikkelsen sets it up so he can basically rewrite the events of World War II. So Indiana Jones says, "You're a fucking crazy guy," and Phoebe Waller-Bridge stows away inside this aircraft. So they go through this butthole, and there's a beat where you think it's that the stuff in Germany and the stuff that's happening in Europe that Mads Mikkelsen wants to undo, but then it turns out we're in the time of Archimedes. And then, there's a bunch of like old-timey catapulty Bastille, what's the thing in fantasy shit? Bastille, like in Fire Emblem Bastille.
Yeah, like a Bastille.
Yeah, the thing that's supposed to take out dragons.
Yeah.
We're in those times. And I remember putting my hands up in my head going, you can't be fucking serious right now, right? Like this is... No way. And I remember thinking like, okay, maybe this is like one of the places they go to, Maybe they go into Jesus's time, or maybe they go to Egypt, like maybe like they go through like 3 different places. No, they're just stuck. They're and like as the airplane gets stabbed with these Bastille harpoon things, my hope for like them going into different times dwindles more and more and more, and I go like, no, please, we can't just stay in Archimedes time. That's like the one time you tease, like they tease in this movie that this Dial of Destiny can go anywhere through time. Like anywhere through time, you go here. And I thought, okay, another reason why I thought like this would have something to do with Indiana Jones's arc was because why else would they have CG Harrison Ford? Because I couldn't wrap my head around, did they just do that just for the first 10 minutes? Because like surely they must have like a Marty McFly meeting Marty McFly, but then not meeting Marty McFly because that would ruin the space-time continuum thing, like in Back to the Future 2 in this movie. I assume that old Harrison Ford, would somehow meet young Harrison Ford or something, but no. We are stuck in Archimedes' time, and then this is all an oopsie by Mads Mikkelsen too. He goes, oopsie, I set the Dial of Destiny wrong. And like Indiana Jones has nothing to do with killing or overcoming the conflict with Mads Mikkelsen. Albeit to say there's a lot of, Nazis going oopsie in this franchise. The Nazis open the Ark, and then their face gets melted off. The Nazis drink the wrong chalice because they think Jesus's dad's chalice is really pretty and really extravagant, where it's actually wooden. They die. They turn into a skeleton. The Nazis oopsies all the time, and it borderlines Deus Ex Machina in this franchise all the time. But this is pretty offensive. This guy prepares his whole entire fucking life. He is presented in this movie as this really, passionate, brilliant Nazi who cares about this Dial of Destiny, and he fucking dials it wrong? You're fucking out of your mind. And not just like he, accidentally went to George Washington's time, like maybe like a century late, like he fucking fucks up the dial so hard. He goes to Archimedes' time, gets shot by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, dies in the rubble of his ship. Archimedes shows up, takes his watch, and he's like, oh, cool, look at that, I have a watch. And then, because Indy is shot on the way to Archimedes' time through the butthole, he is bleeding out slowly, dying. And he's like, leave me here. This is like a dream come true. I've been studying this bullshit all my life. Just leave me here. And like for a second there, because the movie was really trending towards this, I kind of was like, okay, I guess this is where Indy dies. I mean, it's his fucking dream. And then he like, Archimedes shows up out of nowhere. It seems like on the other side of the battlefield, somehow finds his way to where Indy and Phoebe Waller-Bridge are. And then Indy really impressively speaks perfect, I'm not sure what language, Greek? Was it Greek?
Yeah.
Greek to Archimedes, which is really impressive. I thought it was really cool. And then Archimedes was like, this was always supposed to happen. And then not short round. Short round lands with his aircraft because he was tailing them with Mads Mikkelsen this whole time. And then Indy's like, here are the proper coordinates, because that guy was a fucking idiot. Here are the proper coordinates. Get back to your time. Leave me here to die. Because that's totally what a scholar would say who would think he knows a thing or two about how that could ruin the space-time continuum, but like he's just like, fucking leave me here. And Phoebe Waller-Bridge is like, no, Indy, no. I never liked you. I never liked you for this 2-hour, whatever, 15-minute runtime, but all of a sudden, please, Indy, don't die here. And you had major problems with this part.
My major problems with this part were like, this was so obviously a reshoot, okay? Like, when Phoebe Waller-Bridge is like bawling her eyes out trying to convince Harrison Ford not to die here, and then like not short round comes in his plane, she turns around and there are no tears on her face. She's like that happy-go-lucky, annoying girl that she was in the entire movie. I'm like, hey, short round. Essentially, like, we're wait.
Oh, just wait for us. We're going. Blah, blah, blah. She just says that thing.
Yeah, we're about to like come. I just need to like convince this guy. And then she turns around and she's like bawling again. And I'm like, okay, Mangold is a smart enough director to not have hookup problems like that.
He's never had that issue with literally any movie he's made before.
And I was like, whoa, that was really bad. And there's such a clear defining moment where you can, like, that punch leading into the next scene of the movie where like there are so many things about the movie that wasn't addressed, and it just kind of like feels like a band-aid, especially because if you think about logically, there's so much CGI that's happening, and if whatever was planned for the end of this movie must have involved a lot of CGI, like how do you get out of this world? How do you turn back time or whatever? There must have been a lot of CGI, and if people focus grouped it and they didn't like it, good luck trying to reshoot it, because you're gonna have to
go on location.
Yeah, re-CGI everything and get on these actors again. But you know what's really easy? Shooting an ending where everyone's in an apartment. Very simple.
Really egregious too. I love Star Trek Into the Darkness, the second one. I think nerds hate that movie, but actually I thought that movie was really fun, especially right before Star Wars, all of that stuff came out. But like my least favorite part is when the climax, as it heats up, it really heats up that climax. But Captain Kirk gets socked in the face, and then he wakes up in an infirmary. Yeah. And it's one of those. Yes. And I remember so Phoebe Waller-Bridge punches Indy in the face. And then I go, and then it cuts to sort of like they're matching the first shot of when we're back to this present day with Indy being old. You see the socks and the thing in the apartment, and I was like, no. So you didn't want to show how you got yourself out of that pickle, huh? You didn't want to show how, like, you literally put yourself in the biggest pickle ever, which is like, that's, you're supposed to, that's good tension writing or whatever, but you didn't want to show how you got out of that, so you did the cop-out bullshit, and you punch Harrison Ford in the face. We black out with Harrison Ford, and we wake up in his apartment. Yeah. You're fucking out of your mind.
And the day is saved. So in every Indiana Jones movie, Indy has to go get some historical object and put it in a museum. Guess what? We have no idea what happens to the Dial of Destiny that is in the fucking title of this movie. It is never explained what happened to it.
Alex, I'm pretty sure. I mean, if we miss something, leave it in the comments. But like, I'm very sure this entire sequence where we're back in Indy's apartment, there's hardly a word about the Dial of Destiny.
Phoebe Waller-Bridge even says when Archimedes is holding it, she was like, no, he can't keep that. He has to invent it himself. So I'm like, okay, there must have been a separate ending where they take it home. So like, what happens to it? And then like, and with the punch, it basically does this thing where like, technically, she saved the day. She brought Indy home when he didn't want to come home. And then, like, Indy also doesn't have a character arc in this movie because he doesn't want anything.
It happens to him.
Things just happen to him. And at the end, he doesn't make the proper character arc decision of wanting to go home. He had to be forced to go home. And, like, you know, if anything, Helena, Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character, at the very least could have been like, he was basically, he asked her, what do I have left to live for? And then she just basically punches him. And like, you know what? She could have been like, well, you have me to live for, or you have your ex-wife to live for.
Almost ex-wife.
And like, when he wakes up and then, oh, surprise, surprise, the ex-wife that's mentioned throughout the movie is like shows up for him. But like, he was about to die because he didn't care anymore. He didn't choose to go back home to his ex-wife because he loves her that much. He didn't choose that. So like, that isn't actually a character arc. It's just a member berry bullshit for the Xers who don't have very high standards. Like, I was so annoyed. And then guess what? It literally just ends with like that reveal, and I go like, so it ends with a member berry that doesn't mean anything, and no one's character arc is resolved. And in fact,
Phoebe Waller-Bridge is the same exact person we saw her in the beginning of the movie. She's not changed. Doesn't seem like she gives a two flying fucks about Indy at all.
And then the object that's somehow so important, this entire movie just disappears. I'm just like, this movie literally has no point, and it's awful, and I hate it, and it's too long. I was so amazingly shocked by this movie, that how bad this movie was. I was like, we were so mad. We couldn't get out of the theater fast enough.
I kept telling you, like, Jan and I have been together for 9 years. We've been watching movies a lot. Like, this is like one of our favorite pastimes to go into the theater. We've never been this angry with a movie ever. You know, and we're not one of those, you know, dorks who are like, oh, they fucked Indy and made it, they neutered him or whatever. It's just simply an annoying bad movie. And I remember just yelling all of these points that we were talking about on top of my lungs and just going, I think that's the fucking worst movie I've ever seen. Like, I think that's the fucking... And I kept thinking, like, I can't believe you topped Crystal Skull. You made my mind blow in like the opposite ways in what that should connotate. You're supposed to be like, blow my mind in like a good way. You're blowing my mind in a way that like you fucking somehow, some way made a character that's more annoying than Shia LaBeouf, and somehow, some way, you top the egregious bullshit of seeing the fucking space saucer inside of the temple. We go back in time, CG Archimedes, fucking 300, and Troy look better as films, and the production design better than the fucking mush that's in the Archimedes time portion in the third act. It was fucking nuts. I was just thinking, like, I can't believe, and like, this isn't just some like random fucking director they got from Cannes or Sundance. This is fucking James Mangold. Who, like, hot off the tail of Ford versus Ferrari, great movie. Like, how could? And then I just was just like, I can't believe it. I can't believe you made a worse movie than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It was just so profoundly like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Like, I wish you were there when I was just in the car. I just was like, I can't believe it, man. And like to see the Xers, and it's only Xers.
Yeah.
It's only Xers who are like, that wasn't that bad. Shut the fuck up, man.
It was so
It was so bad. Take your fucking rosy fucking shits off of your eyes. It was bad, guys. Don't lie to me. I don't want you to tell me how awful The Flash was, but Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny was all right. You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind.
At least Flash wanted something. At least it was very clear what he wanted. And what he had, like the character arc of him realizing that maybe he shouldn't mess with time. Indy wanted to mess with time.
Like we didn't. For me, I had problems with what's his name? What's his name's Ezra Miller's young Ezra Miller. He's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
I guess that's the whole point because you kind of cringe at yourself when you're that young or whatever. But like, boy, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, like Jesus Christ. It has me fuming in the face of like, you are such an awful human being. Like the only, like, just kept thinking, you keep calling him old. You're acting like a villain. You're acting in your own self-interest, and you don't care, and your jokes suck, and you are this close to working with Nazis, and it's just like, you're just so awful. You're such an awful person.
So bad movie aside, that's neither here or there, I guess, at the end of the day, because these franchise movies have been very, very bad, from like Ant-Man to like The Flash or whatever. They're mostly mediocre. I mean, honestly, if we were to give it a score, this is an F. There are movies that are technically worse than this, but this movie, for a franchise movie, F. Like, I can't believe you made such a bad movie on a $300 million budget. I am thoroughly shocked. With all the focus group testing, I just can't believe it. And you've got James Mangold. You have to try to make a movie this bad with a $300 million budget. I am upset. But like, what I'm more interested about with the whole release of this movie is the hype machine behind it. We've seen it before with The Flash, but with The Flash, I kind of understand. Comic book nerds are annoying. They like to play team sports. There's also like the whole Snyderverse versus James Gunn politicking that's going on.
They're salty WB firees from projects that got evaporated, like the Batgirl stuff. There's a lot of enemies that Flash has.
Yes. But with Indiana Jones, there's this like concerted effort, especially in the week that it was first released, of people just blatantly lying about this movie. There are people listing out every single bad thing about this movie and then going, but it's alright, you should watch it. And I'm like, no, it is not remotely alright. This is the worst. This is gonna go on the worst movie I have watched this year, even though the year is barely halfway over. I am calling it now. I doubt there's gonna be a movie worse than this fucking movie. Because, like, there's no excuse. You can say, like, oh, these, like, B movies that had, like, a $30 million budget was worse. I don't care. This movie was $300 million. Like, it was no excuse. Directed by James, like, no. So, like, for me, especially, like, I don't care what James Mangold says. I don't care what spin Disney puts on this movie. That ending was reshot. You can't convince me it wasn't. It totally was. It's so obvious to me. You lie to me all you want.
I don't know a movie that has a more obvious kind of tell that it's been through reshoot hell than that ending right there.
Yeah. That's
kind of, it should go down in history going like that. We don't do that. If we're going to reshoot, let's not make it look like Dial of Destiny. Boy, man, let's not do that. Because remember when that happened, it was a real piece of shit, and like the average normie could see that was an obvious reshoot. That, I think it will go down in history as like, don't do that ever. If you have a big enough budget to do reshoots, don't do that.
That was the laziest reshoot ending I think I've ever seen for a movie with a $300 million budget. It's amazing, but I understand why it's so expensive. Like, this entire movie is basically an animated movie. It's mostly CGI. So, like, if I can tell, most people are going to be able to tell. And you can't convince me by, like, lying to me on Twitter that this movie is a good movie. It's not. The word of mouth is a real thing. The studio, which means the studio knows that this movie is not good. If we're reacting like this to this movie, and, like, I'm a normie, you're a normie-ish fan. Casual fan. You're not, like, an Xer fan. If we know that this movie is a big pile of shit, and we also know that ending was really, really, really bad, the studio also knows that, but they're not going to say it. Of course they're not going to say it. But what they're doing on social media right now is borderline false advertising and, like, not okay. It's kind of scammy. Everyone is lying about this movie to a degree that, like, to me is worse than the lies about The Flash. Like, they did kind of the same thing.
That was pretty egregious. I remember Tom Cruise, Stephen King are like, it's a feast for the eyes, but you watch it. They're acting like the analogy that kept coming out was like, it's this year's Top Gun. And, okay, like, 2022, when we saw Top Gun, that was like, what did they call Spider-Verse? Almost life-changing.
Yes.
Like, kind of reinvented how I perceive and what's possible in action movies, how physical they could be now, and physical looking at the very least. The Flash was just another Hollywood the superhero romp, and no different than most of the superhero things that come out. Kind of a letdown when you're telling me for some strange reason. I didn't know what would happen, but I kind of wanted to believe the word of mouth that, like, during CinemaCon and all of these influencers, Tom Cruise going like, this is a very special movie, and I go like, well, surely if everybody's saying this, and surely if they got a big response in CinemaCon, it must be at least, like, maybe I won't think it's as good as Top Gun, but maybe, it's fine. It was the most okay movie of okay movies. But then, this movie gets a standing ovation at Cannes. This movie gets a standing ovation at Cannes. And Harrison Ford cries, and there's all this hubbub that, like, this is a great swan song. The third swan song for Indiana Jones, this character. I remember thinking, like, and directed by James Mangold, all this stuff. It's Harrison Ford, all of this stuff, and then you go like, okay. This is not gonna be like Temple of Doom great. This isn't gonna be. This is probably going to be as good as The Flash, right? And you go into this movie, and it's, I swear to God, the worst fucking blockbuster I've ever seen in my life. Like, kind of the only other thing that rivals it is seeing aliens in the last Indiana Jones movie. It's really fucking awful to hear the discourse on Twitter going like, it's not that bad, guys. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
Because, like, to me, it's not that bad is the argument I would give to The Flash.
Yes.
It's not that it's bad. I mean, it's not like, it's not like Logan. It's not like The Dark Knight. But it's not like Age of Ultron, or I mean, not Age of Ultron, Infinity War. It's not Captain America, Winter Soldier. But, like, surely it's like fun. This is the most not fun time I've had in a movie ever, for all of the reasons we were talking about. And it's kind of really, like you said, scammy, really, like, disingenuous. Maybe these people are having rosy colored glasses or whatever. And I don't want to kind of give them that sort of out either. It's like, so that doesn't keep me from thinking this is a piece of shit fucking movie. Like, I don't care if you love Indiana Jones. I don't care if you think I don't understand the character. Dude, what's there not to understand? This is a globe-trotting, fun adventure with booby traps and whipping Nazis.
What I don't understand is I understand why the fanboys of The Flash love The Flash, because it's a love letter to DC and The Flash. But what I don't understand from the shills that are shilling this movie so hard is that this movie actually makes Indy look really bad. This movie is like making fun of him constantly. It's kind of being very disrespectful to Indiana Jones, and yet they're like praising it, which is why I'm like, this doesn't align with every other movie where like the fans love it, but like the critics and the normies don't. It's one of those movies where I'm like, this is actually not a very good movie for the fans. So why?
Wait, so you like Harrison Ford? You like your favorite character that you idolize? You like it when they get made fun of all the time?
Exactly. Because, like, for example, like, with Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, people hated that shit. And yet, like, in this movie, suddenly you love it. I go, like, this isn't real. And so, like, this is totally a hype machine. And I don't think it works. I think it's, like, especially in today's economy, where, like, people are having a hard time affording most things, and you're trying to convince them that this movie, like, you're straight up lying to them that this movie is like really, really good and you should watch it, because it's like what usually happens is about a week after, literally the week after, the real criticism starts coming out of what people actually think of this movie. So you look at...
I think our strategy now, I really like this idea of like, let's let the shill machine and the Hollywood hype machine do its thing, so that when voices like ours come out that go like, that was a hot, steamy piece of shit, I would love for an audience member to actually go watch a movie and see who they side with. Yeah. Because like you just can't with the hype machine right now. It's just so obviously disingenuous. And like if we're right, which like you should fucking hope to God we're not, that like someone like agrees with us that this movie's a piece of shit, how are they gonna view all of the good press that this movie is coming out with? They surely must be just as confused as we are. Yeah. That like, why, like, I agree with these idiots that this movie fucking sucks donkey balls, but why is the machine, Hollywood Reporter, and Discussing Film, and all these fucking assholes, these cockroaches, right, Babylon, these cockroaches are telling everybody that like this movie is great. I mean, sorry, they're not even like willing to go there because they know it's not great. They're willing to say like, it's all right, guys. Just go see it. Just go see it.
Just see it.
Just go see it.
Really, so like it's happened so many times now where like for some reason you wanted to shit on Super Mario Bros, but everyone loved it. And then you wanted to tell us Flash is so great, but everyone hated it. And now you're telling us that Indy is so great, but everyone hates it. What do you think? You lie to people enough. What do you think's gonna happen? You think we're that dumb? You think the public is that
like,
dumb?
The average person's telling you Elemental's not that bad.
Yeah.
Just go see it.
Exactly. People like Elemental and they think Spider-Verse is mid. Like, you can't lie to us. Like, word of mouth is word of mouth. And you look at Super Mario Bros. Versus The Flash. Word of mouth is word of mouth. You can't lie to us. So, like, when recently it came out that Indy underperformed. It made barely 60 million, and
it did worse than The Flash.
It did worse than The Flash. So, like, what do you think is going to happen after you lied to them for an entire week that it's supposedly really, really great? Just imagine the non-existent legs that this movie has. This movie's going to be gone. This movie's going to be gone.
It's going to parallel The Flash, which is gone in a matter of 2 weeks. The worst part that actors and the directors and other studios should get mad at is like, what happens to, let's say, Mission Impossible? And let's just assume Mission Impossible is a really good time. Maybe not as great of it's not going to be the Top Gun of the year. That could be Barbie or Oppenheimer. But like, it's a really good time. And then all of the hype machine says, and even we say, it's a really good time. But then you garner that much bad will with people who believed you when you said that about The Flash, who believed you when they said that about this movie, and got severely disappointed, wasted their fucking money. And guess what? In this economy, it's going to be hard for people to want to watch something like Mission Impossible. And then that movie eats shit because you guys are fucking dishonest. That's your fucking fault, man.
way to like really show the public how dishonest you really are, especially in a time where like they're trying to save money and they're trying to like afford a vacation, and like if they're gonna go watch a movie, they're gonna watch the one that they like, and imagine they spent money on something that they believed you and like that it's gonna be really good, but it's just awful. They're not gonna believe you a second time after like they can barely afford groceries. So I think this hurts more than it helps. I think it's going to continue to hurt like Mission Impossible. It might hurt Oppenheimer and Barbie or whatever big blockbusters coming up. This is not a good thing. This weird dishonest hype machine. If anything, it's weird to me that projections were like 80 million for a 300 million. Like even that's actually low, technically good. And then they keep changing the goalposts. Like they used to say that Indiana Jones was a $300 million budget. They're now saying $295 million because they understand the 299 rule. The like as long as it doesn't have a 3, it doesn't look so bad. And then they also round up where like they were actually saying like Indy actually made like 55 million, but now they're rounding up to like 60 million, and I'm like, oh please, you guys are disgusting. It's not good. And I recently saw a statistic that Disney's last 8 movies lost money, and so far they've lost about $1 billion collectively, and I'm like, ooh, plus Indy, that's not gonna look good. And what's weird is we apparently they only spent $100 million in marketing for Elemental, and Elemental's marketing was really bad. It kind of made me not want to watch it. But when I did watch it, I really liked it. And yet all the marketing budget went to Little Mermaid and Indy. There was so much Indy advertisements, and it kind of irritated me, especially now after watching this movie and we know it's hot garbage. I'm just like, wow, Disney's legacy is in animation, and yet you choose to focus on the live action bullshit that isn't very good, that is oddly aimed at older Gen Xers. Like, what are you doing? Gen Z's not gonna watch this movie. I don't care how popular you think Phoebe Waller-Bridge is. Like, they're not gonna watch this movie. And yet you chose to promote this movie that's was bad versus Elemental that you didn't believe in, even though it's really good. It's upsetting. But I do think this will cause movies like Elemental, with like original idea movies, to for people to take a chance on them. Like, if you keep doing this fake hype machine thing, I think people will start figuring it out, and they're gonna be like, whatever Hollywood says is good,
do the opposite.
Yeah. So like whatever they say is bad, that's probably good, and we'll just watch movies like Elemental or whatever. And yeah, I'd prefer that. That's actually a good thing. So keep doing your dishonest thing, because it only helps people like us and people who make original idea movies.
You're making us look more authentic than you.
So kind of it's amazing. It's not very hard.
We're literally just talking about what we would talk about if we were just huddling up in front of the AMC Harkins, just talking our bullshit. This is just honest, unfiltered bullshit. But it's kind of amazing that if one were to take a chance on our opinions, they watch this movie and they think it's a hot piece of shit, and then they look at Hollywood Reporter and discussing film, going like, oh, you should see this okay movie. It's kind of amazing. You're doing our job for us, so please continue.
Continue this train wreck, because I'm sick and tired of these movies. If you like this episode, subscribe, and got all our bells and buttons. Check out these other episodes next, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.